Hello and welcome to today's webinar about supporting Queensland energy consumers financially affected by COVID-19. I'm Jane Pires, the Energy and Water Ombudsman for Queensland, and today's discussion will focus on the customers in regional Queensland. Before we commence, I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands where we meet today and the land, seas and waters across Queensland. I recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters and culture, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. For those of you who are a bit unfamiliar with the Energy and Water Ombudsman service, just wanted to clarify for you, we are a free, fair and independent dispute resolution service for customers who have a problem with their electricity, gas or water provider. Our jurisdiction is statewide for energy and in the southeast corner for water for all residential and small business customers, including sole traders and small family businesses. More than half of our cases are about billing, usually concerns with high bills, estimated bills, billing errors, or rebates and concessions if they've not been applied or haven't been applied correctly. Credit-related issues are also significant matters of our complaints, and they cover issues like payment plans, collection activities, disconnections, and they're the second most common problem, as I said, that people contact us for. There are some issues that we can't help with, like the price of energy, bottled gas, bulk hot water and embedded networks. However, we do know where you can get help, so if you're having trouble or getting stuck with who to talk to, please give us a call and we'll refer you on. The one thing that we find important, and wanted to share that with everyone again today, is that it's really important that you contact Ergon in the first instance about your problem before you contact us, so that they've got the opportunity to resolve the matter directly with the customer or yourself as the customer's representative. If this hasn't happened, if you come through us, we will refer you back to Ergon to have the discussion before we take a look at the case. We do find this is a really great way to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to have the matter heard and resolved quickly, and that will enable us then to act as we need to as an Ombudsman service. So the conversation today, well, 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us, both personally and professionally. And as COVID-19 first spread to Australia, both the government and the industry responded quickly to introduce additional protections and measures to ease the pressure on consumers in response to the pandemic. As the economic effects of the pandemic continue to impact the lives and livelihoods of consumers, we expect financial counsellors and EWOQ will play an ever-increasing role in supporting Queenslanders needing help with hardship support, payment plans and information about rebates and concessions. And for a lot of these people, this may be the first time that they've had to do that. Today's webinar is the second we're hosting with energy retailers and distributors in Queensland. Yesterday we spoke with 6 energy companies who have customers in the southeast Queensland area, and today our focus is on regional Queensland. I'd like to welcome our guest speakers today who are from Ergon Energy. On the call we'll have Rosemary Price from Ergon Energy Retail and Jennifer Gates from Ergon Network. You'll hear a short presentation from each of them before we open for questions. As I said, you're welcome to provide questions and comments throughout the session using the Q&A function in this meeting. We also have Neville Honey and Chris Samuelson on the call to answer any questions as required. So set the scene for today's discussion. As we spoke about earlier, COVID-19 started earlier this year. And in March, the Australian Energy Regulator published a statement of expectation for energy business, which provided important protections for energy customers and encouraged retailers and customers to stay in contact and for customers to reach out if they need help. This was updated in July and is currently set to end on the 31st of October this year. We hope that all energy retailers and distributors continue to follow the intent of these expectations beyond the end of the month. There is some concern about what's next and how we can ensure additional assistance for customers continues to give with this end date being near. I would now like to introduce you to our first presenter, Rosemary Price, to tell us about how Ergon Retail are supporting their customers in response to COVID. Rosemary is the manager of the credit and receipting. Welcome, Rosemary.
Thanks, Jane. And thank you to EWOQ and FCEAQ for the opportunity to talk with yourselves today and to make that connection with members. It's always really important that we touch base and be very connected with the FCEAQ and people in all communities. In the first slide, there's to the presentation, there's just a very general overview of Ergon Energy and our coverage in regional Queensland. And as residents of regional Queensland, you would all be aware that we provide this service to the vast majority of customers in the regional areas of Queensland. We cover 97% of the state of Queensland and extend from the coast to well inland and even north to Torres Strait Islands. I'd like to also just say that I know that your organisation, FCEAQ, have a very broad coverage as well, and that we have made those connections in the past and will continue and look forward to continuing that relationship in the future. In the next couple of slides, as Jane mentioned, we as a retailer have been working very hard to, and have always worked very hard to provide support to customers who are in vulnerable situations, who are struggling for short periods of time, longer periods of time. And we have set up a number of, in normal BAU situations, we've set up a number of arrangements that have always been available, payment arrangements, as well as specific teams. So on the slide there, you will see information about extension of payment plans, the options for payment, direct debit, CentrePay, which are really what offerings have always been available to us. Customers can come to us via our agents on the telephone or via online means through my account. In 2017, we set up a specialist credit team called the Credit Triage Team, and that team was set up specifically to be the in-between or the triage step between frontline and the hardship team to understand if there was a situation where certainly there were early indicators of financial difficulties, that we would be able to support the customer in those situations prior to moving into hardship, and designed to prevent that further financial difficulty situation. And you're probably all very aware that we've had our hardship program since 2006, and that was introduced well and truly prior to when legislation actually dictated that we had to have a financial so there, Chris Samuelson, who is on the call, is one of the original members of the hardship team and has been involved with that hardship program for a long period of time, and as you will see shortly, also now involved in the vulnerable customer team that covers a broader range of programs. So in normal situations, we have all of those components in place, and certainly during the last couple of months, as Jane has said, everybody has been tested, and we have looked to implement a whole range of additional, I guess, approaches and avenues and support programs. On the next slide, we have, I guess, some of those activities have been focused on support programs that are already in place, but really just honing those programs. In the HEAS application space, Ergon Energy is working with Department of Communities to to trial a situation with his application being online. It is in the early stages of this trial, and Chris and Nev will be able to provide more details on that if needed. And one of the programs also that we're always keen to expand is the collaboration with yourselves, with NGOs and community groups. So this collaboration has always been a very strong feature of our hardship program and our overall, I guess, retail engagement program, because we understand that alone we can't do this, but with your help and working together, we can form a partnership to assist a fuller range of customers and communities than we could do separately. So whenever there's an opportunity, such as the feet days in that have been conducted in Townsville in the past, Anglicare, Salvation Army, get-togethers, QCOS, community outreach days, drought, particularly supporting drought customers, we're always keen to really participate and to provide information to customers, reach out to customers to ensure that there is that awareness of all of the support programs that are actually there. I mean, that's also an opportunity for us to also engage with yourselves as well as the customer base. And I don't think there's ever been a community event that we haven't walked away thinking, well, that was just so valuable. One of the other areas has been, over the last 12 months, the AER have strengthened requirements for the hardship policy. Now, when those strengthened requirements were announced, we really didn't have to do a great deal of additional changes or amendments to our already existing policy. But what we did do is introduce some system changes to highlight to us any financial payment triggers that would be indicators that a customer may be struggling with their payments and may be candidates for the hardship program or referral to the triage team. So the other focus that became, that stemmed from the renewed hardship policy requirements was to refocus our credit collection policy to ensure there was a heightened awareness and of the vulnerable customer base. On the next slide are just some focused activities that have been really important to us over the last, 6 or 7 months. And I think back to, when probably some of you on the line and some of us from Ergon Energy and Jane caught up in Cairns at the conference that was there. I know from my personal experience, that's the last time I've travelled anywhere. And I think we just squeezed that in before there were before the lockdown started. But certainly the impact has been, and I guess from an AER influence point of view, there, as Jane mentioned, there have been 2 expectation statements that have indicated that disconnections and de-energisations would only occur in very, very limited circumstances, and that was where customers were not engaging, and that there would be no referrals to debt collection agencies or no further actions on anybody's account, which previously may have been default listing. So all of that activity has certainly been suspended, and the de-energisations have also been suspended. What that meant also was that we needed to be very aware, and as Jane indicated, there was certainly a whole range of customers, and you would all be very aware, a whole range of customers who had never been in the situation of not being able to pay their bills, and that cohort of customers were very proactive from our experience in contacting us and explaining their situation, and that was a very difficult step for some people to take. So it was really good that that was step was taken, and we've been able to help those customers, some of which have been able to get back on track. Some, unfortunately, we're still in the process of supporting. But through all of that, there's been the extra vigilance, extra training to ensure that any frontline staff is certainly on the lookout and listening really intently with empathy for all of the hardship triggers, including some of those that I have listed there, that there's been decreased or lost income, that there may be additional family members that have lost their income and are now needing to be supported, reduced or stopped payments, additional expenses, etc. And particularly when the customers are working with yourselves, there is a direct process, or there is a direct transfer to the customer assist team, the hardship team. As I said earlier, we've also implemented automatic system hardship triggers. So where there have been a history of late payments, broken arrangements, etc., there is an alert that appears on the customer screen, so that there is the ability to couch the conversation in the terms of a customer who is needing that extra support. Inherent through all of this process, as well as normal business processes, all frontline teams are always checking for whether there are any eligibility for concessions and rebates, and we've also increased the authority levels of all of our frontline teams so that there is a lesser need to hand off to any other parts of the business. So there has been internally a whole range of different offerings and I guess approaches and treatments. I've also noted there that in our triage team, and I should have mentioned before, the triage team manages residential as well as small business customers, and small business customers are offered extended payment plans and have been offered extended payment plans as well. So just moving on to the next couple of slides, it's really, internally we have made a lot of adjustments. Externally and through other programs, the work is still continuing. So the Financial Inclusion Action Plan that Ergon Energy Retail launched in March 2019 has continued and is developing, and in July this year there was the completion of the foundation stage of that program. Some of the highlights of which are the kiosk in Woorabinda, the hardship policy review, creation and development of our own NGO directory, and the focus on energy savvy. The following slides there just highlight, as I mentioned before, Chris Samuelson was originally an original member of the hardship program, and the team that she now is involved with is called the Customer Inclusion Team. So as well as the Hardship team, we have now added a second team which covers a whole range of vulnerable customer support programs. So there was recognised that as well as the Hardship program, we also needed a whole group that was dedicated to all of the programs that, whilst we administer the program, certainly we don't, you know, the rebates and the drought schemes and so on are set out by the government, but Ergon Energy Retail administer all these programs. We saw lots of value in making sure that there was a really concentrated group who managed customers who would be availing themselves of these programs. So Nev heads up the whole team, and Chris manages the groups the programs other than the Hardship team there. One of the very, just leading on from one of the programs that is there, and some of you I'm sure would be very familiar with the card operated meter situation in or set up in remote communities. And this is something that Ergon Energy Retail is really proud of. And in 2017-18, all of those meters were upgraded and all of the back office systems were upgraded. And this has been a great credit and a great example of strong communication, strong cooperation with retail, the distribution business, our external provider with all of the equipment, as well as all of the community groups. And the end result at this point in time is that all of any guaranteed service level payments, any of the utility dividend payments, the rebates, concessional rebates, can all be delivered absolutely seamlessly through the card operated meter facilities and capabilities. So previously there needed to be a whole program of work when the system involved the paper cards. There was a whole program of work when concessional rebate time came about to actually send a whole quantity of paper cards to the communities and to the recipients. So this has certainly been a great step forward and a very beneficial step for customers and communities, and customers are receiving those benefits and rebates instantaneously. So that is certainly something we are really proud of. Just some other areas of engagement that Ergon Energy Retail is also involved with, some of which I mentioned before. On the next slide, we have been involved with energy literacy workshops in partnership with QCOS, Aboriginal community engagement, as I was mentioned before, the community group directory, ongoing work with EWOQ, drought outreach programs, Bring Your Bills Days, and also in recent times also weather events and disaster community hubs. So we've had that opportunity, and certainly we don't want too many weather events and opportunities to have to participate in those disaster hubs, but certainly when the need was there, it has certainly been very well received, and we really find it beneficial to go out to the community and to understand what customers are really experiencing, and they do provide us some really good feedback on how we can improve in those areas. The next slide shows the work that's also being done in the First Nations Connections Plan. NEV has been very involved with this program, and it is covering a whole range of engagement in the communities, particularly in the Aboriginal community close to Rockhampton at Woorabinda, an Indigenous procurement plan, development of Sabenico which is an agency whereby the access to an Indigenous labour pool.
No, that's really good, mate. That's really good.
And also sponsorship of the Journey to Jobs program for the Ignatius Park College there. And in more recent times, a program that you are probably all aware of is the sponsorship, joint sponsorship with ICANN, Ergon Energy Retail and PowerLink with the Financial Counselling Scholarship Program. So we have sponsored the training of 7 financial counsellors, and successful applicants from various areas have been awarded, and I believe are moving through their programs, and it's really delightful for us. And I know Chris was and is heavily involved with that program, and it is probably a piece of work that has taken a long time to come together, and we are certainly very pleased that it's come together in this way at this time, and because we can see that this is an area that on the ground provides absolute benefit, direct benefit to customers and to yourselves. And the last slide there is the provision of details of Nev and myself, as well as the actual triage team and customer assist team numbers. And certainly if there are any items that you are keen to escalate to us, then Nev, myself or Chris would be happy to work with you and take those on board. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to answering questions shortly.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Really great to see what we all know a little bit about, but to have you share that with us and really understand all the programs of work that are underway to assist consumers. It's really great to see. So thanks very much for sharing that with us. I would now like to present our next guest, which is Jennifer Gates, and she's the Customer Investigations and Resolution Manager for Customer and Market Operations for the Ergon Network. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the initiative. We really welcome the initiative, and like Rosemary, it's an opportunity for us to touch base with our customers through our consumer advocacy groups. Ergon Energy Network builds and maintains the electricity distribution network for regional Queensland. So Ergon Energy Network is one of the 2 distribution businesses in the Energy Queensland group. And one of those businesses is Ergon Energy Retail, which Rosemary represents, as well as Chris and Nev today. The other distribution business in the Energy Queensland group is Energex, which maintains the electricity distribution network for Southeast Queensland. Rosemary has covered what our service delivery area is. The blue there is Energex, that's the distribution business for Southeast Queensland, and the olive colour, the remaining part of Queensland in that lovely olive colour, is Ergon Energy service delivery area. As a group of businesses, our vision is to energise Queensland communities, and we strive to support the communities that we live in, both with essential services and other community efforts. And as a network provider, we recognise that the delivery of our Capital Works program is paramount to a safe, reliable, affordable electricity, and it also stimulates regional growth, such as supporting local contractors and businesses. We recognise as a distribution business that the reliable and safe supply of electricity to our consumers is critical. It underpins the economic growth of the state. In response to COVID-19, Energy Queensland stood up the emergency management team, who developed an operating model with a view to slowing the spread of COVID-19, managing the health and safety of our employees, and minimising the disruption of supply to our customers to ensure and secure and reliable electricity supply. I think I guess from a network perspective, it's critical to the state as a whole that we ensured that our employees, particularly our field crews, we were managing any kind of risk from a COVID perspective. As you would appreciate, we have field crews that are interacting with customers on a daily basis, and particularly our meter readers. We were also acknowledged and understood that a number of our customers were expressing concern with our field crews, particularly meter readers, entering onto their premises. And that was particularly in those early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. I guess we were all a little bit concerned with the spread of it. In time, I think we've all become more comfortable, and I guess particularly in view of the response from our health department and the fact that we haven't had a huge community transmission. But in those early days, there was particularly concern being expressed by our customers about our crews grouping together in work along the road in maintaining the network, and in addition to entering onto their properties. I guess we've also acknowledged, as would everybody else on this webinar, that the pandemic continues to have a significant impact on our customers and communities, and particularly certain segments of our communities. And I think that's highlighted in research that I've seen from down south, particular groups, segments of our community which have been more adversely impacted than others. For our rural communities, we've also acknowledged that COVID-19 comes on the top of financial stress associated with years of drought, and with 2/3 of the state still being drought declared. In line with what I've indicated earlier, we recognise as an essential service provider that the delivery of a safe and reliable electricity supply is critical to an economic recovery, and so we're committed to using best endeavours to maintain a safe and secure and reliable electricity supply during the pandemic. We particularly saw that in those early days of the pandemic, when people kind of began working from home on a much larger basis than they are now, and we were particularly mindful that that outages weren't interrupting people who were working from home, and particularly when kids were working at being schooled at home. So we did stop a lot of non-critical work to ensure that our customers in a home setting could continue to. There's enough stresses on everybody at that time, and we recognised that we needed to identify work that was non-critical and to ensure that continual supply of electricity, particularly for planned maintenance work. Again, that's a bit of a struggle for us because we've also got to recognise that our network has to be maintained. We have a regulatory obligation and a moral obligation to ensure a safe supply of electricity for our customers, and to do that we need to do regular maintenance on the network. One other kind of example was particularly in terms of how our field crews, or I guess one of the initiatives that was developed in our COVID response was that, particularly in those early days when we are required to complete a re-energisation visual before a customer is reconnected to supply, and we were at that time asking customers to leave their premises for us to enter into their house to ensure that their installation was serviceable and we could reconnect supply. As I've indicated, that was an example of our field crews having made some changes to the way they work and interact with each other. We've worked to abide by social distancing measures to ensure minimal exposure to our customers. And I touched on just before about the frequency and duration of planned outages for critical works. And we were also working to ensure that our customers had as much notice as possible to assist them and their businesses to manage during any outage, as we recognise that particularly for small businesses and businesses generally, when electricity, they were going through a difficult time, as it was particularly then when everybody was working from home, and that's the legacy that they are still responding to. So I've touched on that. We revised our work program with the restrictions to limit planned outage to those working and schooling from home. We tried to ensure that we created a new complaint category so that often people will express dissatisfaction generally just about a planned outage, and as you would appreciate from a distributor's perspective, we try and balance everybody's needs, but equally we do have that strong obligation to maintain a safe and reliable electricity supply, and safety is the ultimate driver for us. But particularly in COVID-19, we wanted to be able to capture customers' dissatisfaction and concern with outages going on at that time when they were working from home, and kids working at home as well. Then as the health threat lessened, we prioritised and accelerated the delivery of key capital projects to maximise employee utilisation and support local contractor and suppliers. So that's where we are now in terms of our COVID response. We slowed everything down a little bit at the beginning, people are returning to work, and now we're really trying to accelerate those key capital projects, particularly around solar connections to the overall network. That kind of it ensures that we're doing our bit for the state's economic recovery. The next slide. One initiative for small businesses in terms of the difficulties they would undoubtedly be encountering in terms of COVID-19 is that they may wish to speak with their retailer to seek short-term relief in the form of a NIMI reclassification or network tariff change. For them to do that, there is an impact statement to be provided to their retailer, and then the retailer would speak to us as the network provider, and that would be a business-to-business kind of discussion, and the retailer would be submitting that application from that small business to the distributor. I guess generally, as a business, as a group of businesses, and the distribution businesses in particular, we've welcomed the AER Statement of Expectations. I note that a revised statement came out yesterday. We, as a business, have welcomed the detailed guidance and published responses to a range of industry questions. And from a distribution perspective, that statement has really encouraged joint workings or kind of in-depth conversations between ourselves and our retailers. We recognise our retailers represent the customer base. We act only, as you may be aware, a distributor only acts upon a retailer's request, and the retailer is the customer's voice coming to the distribution business. If you've got any questions from a network perspective, don't hesitate to give me a call or to email me. I may not be able to help you, but I certainly will ensure that somebody does respond to you and the right person does. I'd like to thank you again for listening to me, and again for the this wonderful initiative that EWOQ has undertaken. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jennifer. I really appreciate your time and sharing that information with us. And when you were talking, I do remember back in March, and I remember that because it was just before we were to leave the office, and we got an unusual call at EWOQ about a lady who had just returned from overseas, was in quarantine at home, but had been de-energised, and we needed to get back in, and that was the conversation about, well, how do we do when we've got her health and safety and your team's health and safety, and really quick decisions and discussions that were happening. Positively, you put in a really good plan, but at the time it was like, oh, how are we ever going to overcome all these aspects? So it's really great to see that you've been able to do that work and get there. So that's really wonderful.
And interesting, Jane, I don't have any other, apart from that customer who we needed to do, I think, the visual inspection. I think she'd come back from visiting her father, I think, in China. I can't recall any other type of incident since then. I'm not sure. From a distribution perspective, I haven't heard of anything similar to that. And that's kind of quite amazing given the environment that we've been in for the last 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was just the quick actions by yourselves, but also the health directives and everything we were getting to really understand how to keep everyone involved safe. So that was really good. That's great. So just before we head over to our question section, I just have a slide that I wanted to share, and we'll provide this to everyone. One of the discussions we've had with all the energy providers is how can the customer get through to the right team to have the right conversation, particularly when they're unsure or uncomfortable to actually speak the words or know what to say, and are not feeling positive and comfortable about doing that. So we'll share this out, but a lot of the providers agreed these are some really good verbal cues that will help trigger that conversation or trigger that transfer into that department that they may feel comfortable about saying or sharing. I know that the third one from the bottom, I've been impacted by COVID, has been it's been one that's been taken up and people are feeling really comfortable with that. So we'll just share that with you all so that you can see and provide that information and support to any of the consumers that you may be dealing with. Great. Okay, so it's time to answer some of your questions. So thank you to everyone who has provided questions either before today or on the Q&A feed. So I have got here, I've got some questions and I'll kick off. So one of the questions we have here is, does hardship support include a reduction in charges or a payment window to defer the debt? So Rosemary, I might ask you if you would like to provide that from your perspective.
Yes, certainly, Jane. There has always been a consideration of extending payments, and if the customer is unable to pay anything for a period of time, then that is also taken into consideration. So we have many customers who are protected from any further credit path activity and who have indicated they cannot pay for a period of time, and we will work with them to try to encourage the budgeting and the understanding of how they can manage their debts, because obviously it's not just our debt, there are probably other debts as well, and that's where we really do rely upon working with financial counsellors and other community groups.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Another one while you're there, Rosemary, is what hardship arrangements do you have, or what have you put in place right now for businesses? And can your credit triage team assist business customers as well?
Absolutely. The credit triage team, as I mentioned with the slides, we certainly work with small businesses overall, and there have been many arrangements put in place with small businesses. And a lot of businesses, as we know, have had to close their doors with absolutely no income. So there are definitely periods of time that we have provided with small businesses to not have to pay amounts. I'd like to also say that also is applicable for some large businesses as well, who have never ever been in that situation. So normally large businesses are able to pay their bills on a monthly basis without the need for any payment terms or extensions. There are some very, very large businesses that we are working with who have been unable to pay their bills outstanding, but for which we have put in a payment arrangement. So it's a very, very unusual time in history.
Wonderful, yes, that it is, certainly. And I might open this question up to yourself, Rosemary, Nev, or Chris. This is from Eunice. So will Ergon look at bringing in other discounts that would benefit low-income families besides the rebates?
So as an organisation, so I'll just answer this part, as an organisation, government-owned organisation, we cannot provide discounts, and we don't provide the rebate. It is a government rebate, and we administer the rebate. Chris and Nev, would you like to add some more there?
Yes, correct. Exactly that. Those programs that we administer on behalf of the government, and that's why we encourage and we always check to make sure that even though there's no real ability for us to affect the price or change that, or a market contract that some other retailers who are a competitive retailer in the southeast can do, we always check to see what other subsidies, concessions, such as the HIAS, concession as well, that we will be able to get the customer to take advantage of. So far as us offering and being able to do our own discount, we're unable to do that at the moment. But we certainly check to make sure that we're including all the other rebates and concessions.
Great, thanks very much, Nev. Another question for you. This may be, I'll open this up to the panel because you may all have different information here. So how long is the telephone wait time to talk to Ergon regarding payment difficulties, and can customers request a call back rather than hold?
From my point of view, at the moment, another strange situation during this COVID period of time is that our queues are open and the wait time is very low. In terms of moving through to the next escalation to the triage team and hardship program, that's also in recent times has been direct. In the past, when we've had a large volume of incoming calls, there have been delays, but currently there are no delays. It would be very unusual for there to be delays now.
That's great, great to hear. Thank you. So I have a question from Kylie. What happens if a customer's income can't sustain their arrears and future bill and they're not eligible for HIAS?
Chris, would you like to, or Nev? Yep.
That's certainly something we, encounter quite often. And one of the things that we always do is to make sure that we are looking at a customer's, being very considerate of customers' income and looking at reducing as much as we possibly can, or looking at ways of their consumption or their usage, so that is not going to add to the level of debt that they have. So if the income is not able to sustain their arrears, we are always in contact with them with the program, the hardship program, making sure that they can actually be supported during that period of time, because we all know that some people's income are going to be affected by that, and we're really considerate of that. So it allows some people to be on our program for a short period of time, but then it allows, we're very flexible and supporting people for a longer period of time as well, until we can get to the point where the income can sustain that level of arrears. So it's an ongoing process that we manage very regularly with the customer, and flexible with the amount of time that they can come onto the program, and that's how we approach that situation.
Wonderful, thanks very much. Another question, again, I'll open this one up for the panel. It's great having extra people here to call upon. So if a customer asks for hardship, are they likely to receive a deferral? And the question was asked because they have a client that's hesitant to ask for help for anything and concerned about encouraging them if it's likely that they're going to be knocked back.
My response is customers need to contact us as soon as possible and explain their situation. And we are very aware that there is that hesitancy in asking for help, but please encourage your clients to either, contact us directly, contact centre, or through the assist lines that the telephone numbers have been provided, or to go to yourselves and to call whilst they are with you as financial counsellors and support agencies. So please, if you can help us and by encouraging customers to always make that call.
And it's a good point to make as well, that every time someone is referred to the hardship program, I don't think we've ever really knocked anyone back. We've always accepted them onto the program. The way that they're referred identifies the true need, so we take that really seriously and we support that particular person, and they shouldn't feel like they're going to get knocked back.
And can I just add, we're regional Queenslanders too. We live next door to all of our customers, so we understand what they're going on, what's happening in their lives, and the team are very supportive and will do whatever they can to help the customer. And I guess if they're calling the contact centre and they're not comfortable getting that message across, they only need to say, I need help from the hardship team.
Great, well, thank you all very much for that. Just to follow on, Nev, from the conversation before, if a customer's on the life support and they can't pay their power bill, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but it's probably best coming from someone in the organisation.
We have special provision so that when a person is presenting as a life support customer, we will support them, they're protected from disconnection. So we will still maintain our normal follow-up with credits and reminder notices, but there is not they will not be disconnected because of their need to be on the whatever condition they may have, whatever the supplies they're required for, whatever equipment they need. We will not we will not disconnect them if they cannot pay their bill. And then we'll support them through that process as well if they require assistance to help them pay for that.
Thank you very much. So we've got a few more questions here, so I'll go through them really quickly, just very mindful of the time. With the AER statement of expectations and what Rosemary just said about small business and large businesses paying as they have no income, you'd be looking at any of your customers, I would suggest, with the statement of expectations at the back of your mind when you're assessing how we can help and what you can provide to them.
Certainly, Jane. We have actually gone beyond the expectations of the AER, because in regard to large businesses, AER relates only to those large businesses who have embedded networks providing electricity to smaller consumers. We have just looked at our entire customer base and not de-energised any customers, and have provided support to all customers, residential, small business and large business.
Certainly. And there was a question before about assistance that's provided for the victims of family and domestic violence. From what I read and understood, I would suggest that there's a lot of assistance available, but to contact through to the triage team and go through the circumstances, and you'll be able to work out a solution with them, either with the customer directly or with someone who may be representing them.
That's correct, yes.
Great, excellent. Just mindful of the time, there's some more questions there, which what we'll do is we'll share them and we'll get the response and we'll post that back to you with the information from the session today, if everyone's comfortable with that. Just really quickly, for the two questions I can answer. So the regulator, the Australian Energy Regulator, is currently reviewing, as we've talked about during today. They're actually looking at the statement of expectations, so they may have taken it down off their website, but it is currently under review right now, and I believe there's a lot of input being provided from the various stakeholders within the energy industry on that one. So as soon as we know, we'll actually share information with you as well, and we'll put it up on our website. And one of the other questions we received was, when will EWOQ be able to assist embedded network customers? So we're partway through the process. We are waiting for further legislation action to occur. As we're now in caretaker mode, we are patiently waiting, and we hope to have some more information on that aspect to share with you early in the new year. But it is positive, and we are really looking forward to be able to offer that consumer group assistance as well. So we're at the end of our time today. So what's next? For me, I'd like us all to keep talking. I think the communication, keeping the channels open and really reaching out to each other and keeping everyone updated is really critical. Remember, if you have a problem with your energy bill, or your consumer does, please call your provider and start the conversation. Under any circumstances, I think you can hear from today, they're keen to talk with you, they're keen to work with the consumer to help everyone. So I want to thank you all for attending today, and to our scheme participants for their great contribution. I would also like to call out and thank my team here at EWOQ, who've helped us pull this all together and run it as well as we can under the circumstances, and I hope you've all have had a really good visual experience, as we understand that the internet's not always as stable as we would like it to be in areas of regional Queensland. As I said, a recording of the webinar will be published on the website, and we'll send you all a link for those who've attended today. And the link there is for the survey. As I said, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time and provide your feedback. If anyone would like EWOQ to do presentations in any way for you at any of your team meetings or any other meetings you may have where you think our information could assist, please contact us at marketing@ewoq.com.au. Thank you everyone for your time. Please stay safe, enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll talk with you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.